WV Uncommon Place. This podcast is a variety podcast that houses numerous series to cover mental health, empowerment, podcast framework, and various intimate theories to get to know the hosts, along with occasional movies reviews and dives in pop culture with our event podcast episode. The Uncommon Place digs into bringing guests on that stories don't fit the mold and are very different. WV stands for the great state of West Virginia, and every quarter we cover something in West Virginia. Stacey and myself, JR, are your hosts, so please come along for this venture to our Uncommon Place.
Howdy, everybody. So let's just do the simple thing. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to whomever is going to listen to this or review this. So this thing happened to me. Everybody knows that I competed in a professional video game tournament over this past weekend, which that would have been first week of August. I only placed uh, in one certain event. The other events, I kind of had something happen to me. I kind of self-destructed. And that happened to me because I didn't hold true to my normal values, and I didn't keep my mind ready, and I didn't keep the physicality of just moving my hands across a arcade stick nice and tight in my normal frame. I accept that, and not everybody can accept that. Sometimes there are things that happen to us in our journey, just like mine, that kind of mess us up. So today I have somebody here with me. His name is John Borden. He has an interesting story, and he has a catalyst he would like to talk to us about. He would like to tell us about how he's restructured his life and how he is coaching and transforming others as he has transformed himself. And we all know with a transformation story, there had to be a down period that started this rising out of the ashes like a phoenix. So, without any more from me, please let me pass it along to John Borden, and thank you for coming on the show.
Dude, JR, thank you so much for having me, man. Cool to hear about your tournament that you were in, regardless of how you did, showing up and, giving it your all, even if you're not happy with the results of it. It shows a lot. It shows that you're willing to challenge yourself and willing to go for things that really excite you. So, props to you for undertaking that challenge. And regardless of how it turned out in the standings, you should feel really proud for going there and doing your thing, man.
Thank you. Now, let's do this real quick, John. Let's go back in time. Let's go to the before. How did your origin story start, and how did your story get you to where you are today?
Yeah, man. Well, so it really depends on how much time you want me to dedicate to this answer. But I can kind of take you back. I had been somebody, I grew up in New Jersey, had been somebody who latched on to fitness from a young age. Really got my start when I was 12 years old, and it's been a part of my life ever since then. Um, Now, through my teens and early 20s, I struggled with identity. I thought that I had, figured out who I was through the party scene, through being president of my fraternity in college and coming out of school and working a job that I excelled in at a high level in the early stages of my career. But after 4 years at that job, being the top performer nearly every month, I got fired after a break-in, and that started a spiral that did not stop for a number of years afterwards. Now, when I was in college, I caught the party bug, like I had said before. I was drinking, using cocaine on a way too frequent basis, blacking out regularly. And that continued all throughout my 20s until I had relocated from New Jersey to Connecticut during the pandemic. And after making that move, being detached from my friends, family, and really searching for community in this place where I was trying to blaze a new trail for myself, I recognized that my habits, the drinking, the cocaine usage, the chasing of cheap pleasures through sex or, whatever it was, were really just leading me down a path where I was living only for external validation. And, I had an absolute breakdown point after about a year of doing the job that I moved up to Connecticut for, where I realized that if I continued doing what I was doing, I was going to blow my fucking brains out. And, there's a number of things that kind of led me to my transformation moment about a year after I had that breakdown period in Connecticut. But shortly after that, I moved to Tampa, Florida. I, kind of reestablished my roots, but was still in the same cycle as of partying and chasing sex and, not really living a fulfilling life. But then, I had a moment in October and November of 2022 that just completely flipped my life on its head, showed me how I was wasting my time and my efforts, and showed me that I had the ability to choose a new path for myself. And ever since then, have gone full steam ahead into creating that new life that I envisioned for myself during that experience and helping to bring positivity to others through what I'm able to do for myself.
Okay, thank you for that answer, and thank you because that was very personable. Now, in the down period, and you said in 2022, you came to a resolution. You identified the problem and you figured out that, hey, I need to do something. And what was that I do something moment? What was that exactly? That point right there, where were you at and what emotions and feelings were going on at that point?
Yeah, man. Well, so you had referenced in the open about a catalyst for my transformation. And spoiler alert to everyone, that catalyst is the current Schedule One drug that hopefully will not be for much longer, psilocybin mushrooms. And I had tried them one time when I was 18, had an experience that I really didn't understand at the time, and kind of swore them off throughout, the next decade that followed. Uh, but I was open back up to trying them again, and when given the opportunity in October of 2022, it just kind of unlocked the key to everything that had been holding me back. And what it really came down to was understanding emotion, understanding how my body responded to certain inputs, and how I was following paths that I had created over years and years of intense social molding. And what I realized through my experimentation of psilocybin between October and November of 2022 was that I didn't have to follow the same social molding that I had succumbed to over the previous 29 years. That I had the ability to look at what I had gone through in life with a different lens than I had looked at it previously. And it gave me a moment of clarity to say, that old me is done. The new me is rising from the ashes and continuing with an unbridled confidence in the direction that I'm moving forward in.
Okay, so using a psychedelic to help you, this was more or less, it wasn't like a last ditch effort. It was something that came back to you because let's all be honest, we've all tried shrooms if you haven't tried shrooms or different things, you know. And I'm not talking about for my country people going out into the cow pasture and pulling get them out of a field. I ain't talking like that. So trying the psychedelics in a controlled manner, and that's one thing I want you all to understand, audience. John is speaking from a controlled manner. He's not talking about going out here and being reckless.
Well, actually, JR, I should stop you there because it was recreational. It ended up being an insanely transformational experience, an extremely positive experience. But it had started as, let's try this. I had planned on going to a music festival about a month from when I first tried them in adulthood, and just wanted to understand what the feeling was going to be like before exposing myself to that type of experience surrounded by 200,000 people. So I started trying them it started with just me and one of my friends at my home, at my apartment in Tampa. And when I ate them for the first time, I just started crying like 30 minutes in and could not stop crying because I finally processed emotion from a breakup that had happened 3 years prior that I never gave myself the space to sit with and understand my role in what made that relationship go awry. And so I tried them two more times before going to the music festival, EDC, that I ended up attending. And what started to reveal itself to me was just how positive they were for helping me think through things. And by the time I returned home from EDC, now this is 6 experiences, all intended to be recreational, but they all came with a moment of solitude to allow myself to think through what was going on in my mind and process exactly what it was that had limited me up to that point and choose to move in a different direction.
Okay, so to clarify, I get what you're saying now. That's sort of like and I can go into detail with this because I don't care. It was sort of like what happened with me in Las Vegas. After I was done, I hadn't had I'm a weed smoker. I smoked a moon rock variant of marijuana, and it opened me up a whole lot different than the other things. So I get what you're saying because you had an emotional block that you had made in your life, and you didn't mourn. You had a loss in that relationship. So I get that. And I will say this for the audience, and I will say this for anybody. It's no different than going to go get Prozac or something else to take care of an issue. Um, and the reason I say that is because, and I said it in a controlled manner, because think about what you just told me, John. You did it with someone around you before you went somewhere. So you actually did do it in a controlled environment. You controlled the scenario. It wasn't like you went out here and went out on sorry about that. My little glucose monitor thing went off. I'm sorry about that. It didn't like you just went out here and you left Tampa and went up to Clearwater and just started doing shrooms and walking around and going crazy. You didn't do that. It was a controlled manner. Um, so the next thing that I'd like to know is that after you went through this breakthrough, what were the warning signs? What were your close friends like when you told them about this experience? Were they negative? Were they positive? How did your world react to your new findings?
Yeah, well, so I talk about one of the conversations that I had with a friend of mine shortly after I got back from the music festival, and we were coming back from St. Petersburg to Tampa. We had hung out, had a couple of drinks during the day, and you know, I'm driving back over to Tampa, and my friend's like, "Yo, let's go to the strip club," and I'm like, nah, like that's just not me anymore. He's like, come on, dude. Like, I'll go grab a bag. I'll give you $100 to throw at the strip club. Come on, let's do it. And I'm like, dude, no. And he's like, so this is just who you are now? And I responded, yeah, this is just who I am. And faded completely. I had a really strong group of friends in Tampa and another group of friends in St. Pete. And what I realized after my experience was that what we wanted out of life was just very different. They still wanted to be, in that party culture and chase dopamine and go out and try to get girls and yada yada yada. And my attention had just been shifted from that to what can I do to better myself and what can I do to better the people around me. And so, when the opportunity came for me to, you know, go out drinking until 2 a.m. or, you know, do whatever else that I would have previously jumped at the opportunity to do. I was able to ask myself, is this going to get me closer or farther away from my goal? And when the answer was farther away, I chose to pass on it. So, a lot of those relationships either faded completely or just changed at their heart. And, you know, it sucks losing those connections. It sucks losing those relationships. And there was a long period of my life, about a year, from the end of 2022 to the end of 2023, where I really felt lost. I really felt like I was without the community that I had worked so hard to build, and without the support structure that I had, told myself that I needed to feel secure and to feel successful in what I was doing. So it was a long period of, just questioning if I had made the right decision.
Now, the one question I have during this experience from 22 to 2023, did you feel alone or loneliness? Which feeling did you have?
Hmm. That's an interesting that's an interesting clarification there, JR. Um, I would say alone. Uh, Nobody really understood what I was going through. You know, they, a number of them had tried mushrooms, but I don't know if they really had the same type of uh, opportunity to sit with themselves and be alone with their thoughts and figure out what was going on in their own mind. So for me to have such a radical experience and commit to such a radical transformation as I was able to, it left a lot of questions, a lot of judgment from other people. Not that I really ever felt it from a, you know, come on, you got to drink, you got to do this, you got to do that. Once I made my decision that was it, that was final. There was no convincing me. But it it really made it difficult to stick to that transformation when you see the same guys that you used to hang out with every weekend going out and having fun without you. Uh, but it helped to remind myself that that wasn't my definition of fun anymore. So it just wasn't where I deemed my value to be the highest.
Okay. So when you're alone, in some cases, people see the four walls closing in really tight on them. So in the state of being alone, so you go 23 to 24, what does that what does that end up looking like for you once you get into that state? The walls kind of get tight on you, and you're like, hey, what am I going to do next to make these walls not be so tight on me? What did you do to get out of that tightness?
Yeah, well, so really the big thing is um the where where you where you determine your own value matters a lot in how you see yourself in the world and how you allow others to see you. Because for the first 30 years of my life, I defined my value by what others thought of me, not how I thought of myself. And so when I went through my experience with psilocybin in 2022, that was one of the big things that I recognized was that, I was using comfort as a crutch, whether that was in relationships or friendships, that I was placing more value in what others thought of my actions than what I thought of my own actions. And as 2022 turned into 2023 and that year of loneliness proceeded, there was so much of that, man, I think I'm defining my value for myself, but I haven't really gotten there yet. And as 2023 came to a close, uh, I really rediscovered my love for fitness. And now I had said at the open that my love and attention for fitness started when I was 12 years old. And that was the one thing, even through the drinking and cocaine and everything like that, that never faded. I was heavily into powerlifting. I would, go to the gym and try to just throw up as heavy weight as I could. And that was an awesome way to keep me focused and, give me an anchor that, even when I'm waking up with a fucking bloody nose and pounding headache and yada, 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 that just chugging a half gallon of water and some pre-workout would give me enough resolve to get to the gym and get a sweat in and feel like I'm making some positive progress for myself. So, even through all those down years, I still stayed focused on what I wanted from a physical fitness standpoint. And as 2023 came to a close, or excuse me, as I had my experience with psilocybin, it allowed me to question everything that I was doing, and my physical fitness regimen was a big aspect of that. Because, up until that point, like I said, I was just heavy into powerlifting. And what I realized was that my body was super tight, my shoulders super tight, my hips super tight, hamstrings, everything. And I said, okay, is this the best use of my time? I hadn't hit a PR in like 2 years at that point. I'd maxed out
Oh,
all my lifts. Yeah, I got up to the point, a pretty fucking strong dude, for,
so you were kind of peaking.
yeah, yeah. And I asked myself, I was like, okay, I've got two routes right now. I can take steroids or something like that to try to bump up those numbers, or I can try to figure out something else to do with my physical health. And so, uh, I had a bike that I had won in a raffle in 2018 that sat in my closet for 4 years. And I finally got that fixed once I had my experience with mushrooms. And I started riding that semi-regularly. I'd get up to like 10 miles at a time, something like that through 2023. And I was still going to the gym, but just not really pushing myself, probably doing like 70, 80% max on stuff just to kind of maintain rhythm and routine. And as 2023 was coming to a close, I got word that there was a Spartan race nearby. Have you ever done
Oh,
one of those? You familiar with them?
oh yes, sir. We have a big one in Morgantown, West Virginia.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, I would like to travel, the globe doing them eventually. But that'll be an endeavor for a John in the near future. But I had gotten wind that there was one in Central Florida, about 2 hours from where I lived. And so I reached out to a number of my friends to see if anyone wanted to do it with me 2 months prior. And I had a couple of friends that said they wanted to do it, asked them to sign up. Nobody signs up. It's 2 weeks before the race, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. I've wanted to do this for a long time, regardless of if my friends are going to show up or not. I want to do this for myself. So I hadn't run in regularly in like 11 years from the start of college until 2023 when this race was. But I signed up for a half marathon with 2 weeks to prepare. And I went out and I crushed it, man. I finished in the top 5% of the open division.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah, really just shocked myself with how well I was able to persevere through cramps and pain and exhaustion and yada, 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 to finish very respectably, especially for my first time and especially for having not run in 11 years. So that really lit a fire inside me and said, you know what, man, you've been discounting your own athleticism for way too long. Just because, your powerlifting numbers are in the top 0.5% and not the top 0.1% doesn't mean that you're a failure from a powerlifting standpoint, right? Just because you haven't run doesn't mean that you don't have a decent enough cardiovascular health to go out and do a half marathon on a whim, right? And so that kind of just lit a spark in me to say, holy shit, this is something that I've really dedicated my whole life to, and I haven't given myself enough credit for because I've been comparing myself to other people, either on the internet or people that I, grew up with or whatever. If I go hard into this and if I truly focus on this, I can begin to really surprise myself with what I'm able to do. And so, that really, again, lit a fire for how I approached my physical health from that point forward. And, around that time, I decided to stop drinking completely and just go hard into what I do from a physical fitness standpoint. And it's led me down an incredible path.
Okay, and I like that. Now, you get there and you start you're pursuing your coaching others through their transformations now, correct?
Hmm.
And what led you from Spartan racing to coaching? Because that Spartan race, now I'll tell you, I've had an aunt-in-law. She does those, and she does them all over the United States. And I
Hmm.
got to see her do one. You have to be a physical specimen to do that, first off. So that's amazing on that. Like, because that's truly, to me, that's like, you're at top peak performance of your body, period. Because that,
Yeah, man, you're not only running, but it's monkey bars, it's sandbag carries, it's barbed wire crawls, it's, rock climbing and all that all rolled into one big challenge that you need to undertake. And man, there's so much fun.
right. And physically and mentally, it probably puts you on a different plane. Like it takes you beyond what you were before. And once you're done with it, you're on that new plane and you have to keep that up. I don't know how that works out, but you can tell us in just a moment. But one thing that I want to do real quick is something that we do on the show. We do this thing called the shameless plug. And that's where people can meet and greet you across the internet. So, John Borden, real quick, could you please tell everybody where they can meet and greet you across the internet so they can get involved with you?
Yeah, man. I'm really active on Instagram. My handle is at Johnny B, JohnNniebe. You can also find me at getpsychedfitness.com. That is psyched, Psyched, fitness.com. Uh, yeah, so reach out to me on there. I am launching my online coaching platform right now. So if you reach out and you're interested in learning how I can help you virtually, I'd be happy to take you on and see what we can do to help maximize your potential together.
And then the next major question is, when is the podcast coming out?
What podcast?
When's your podcast coming out?
I haven't started one.
And why not?
Well, it's right now my focus is on completing my audiobook. So that's my one big project that I have going on right now. Once I complete that, I am considering starting a podcast. Working title, Psychedelics Changed My Life. I want to hear from other people who have had major transformational experiences with psychedelics and use them to make positive changes in their life.
Okay. But let me ask you something, or let me put a challenge to you.
Hmm.
You have 15 minutes every day that everyone has 15 minutes that they block off for nothing. And I know you got 15 minutes in your day. You already have the setup, correct? You can record 15 minutes a day, right?
Okay.
10 minutes or so. Build the level of intimacy that you do with your story because that helps people. If you could take that time, and I'm not putting pressure on it right now, do your audiobook. But sometimes we have free days. Our clients, some things happen with our clients and they can't, meet everything that we have them to do, right? So sometimes we do have 15 minutes. I believe your show would be very inspirational. It's always amazing to be a guest on a show, but when you have your own show, which I know you got the fortitude and you've got the drive to do it, you would be able to help someone. And I'm not saying do anything major. I just say do 4 shows a month. I ain't telling you do one every day or nothing like that. But you would be amazed with your story, even though you're sharing it on my platform and other people's platforms, how amazing it is when it's your platform and you're the one doing it. So my suggestion to you would be is get that podcast going as soon as that audiobook's done.
I appreciate that, Jared. Thanks for the vote of confidence, brother.
Right. And the other thing, before we jump off here is this. Um, Rebuilding yourself and understanding that you needed some form of help and you did a self-guided help, which I appreciate that. You didn't have to go to the confines of the mental institution, and I'm not saying mental institution like someplace that's going to mess you up or anything, but you didn't have to go to a psychiatrist or anybody like that to handle this. You handle this yourself. You have a regiment for your medicine and everything you're doing, and I appreciate you for doing that. But one thing that I would like for the audience to know is, how did you set up a therapy regimen going forward with the psychedelics?
Yeah, well, so, you know, we had gotten up to the end of 2023 with kind of my path. I don't know, how much time we have left, but I'd love to share the story of how I
Go
got
ahead.
into my coaching. So, I started when I moved down to Tampa. I had a work from home job. I was selling websites to real estate agents, and I did that throughout all of 2022 and 2023. And as you can imagine, once I got this experience with psilocybin, I recognized that was just not how my talents are going to be best utilized. I really had this calling. I had a connection with the creator, universe, God, whatever name you want to give it, um, in 2022, and I had my experience that told me, "You're good now. Go help people." And I kept asking throughout all of 2023, how? How do I help people? And the answer that I got was just keep writing your book, just keep telling your story. And it frustrated me a little bit, because you want to do something tangible. You want to be hands-on and make an impact for people. And so I was looking for jobs in the psychedelic space. I was looking for, something that I could do that felt mission driven and felt like I was making an impact for people. And so I secured a new job at the end of 2023 to begin 2024 with, where I was going to be working with a physician, helping plaintiffs get better compensation for personal injury claims. And so I started that as a, director level position at the beginning of 2024. And after a month and a half of doing that, I realized that it was really just a money grab for the attorneys, that the people who got injured in these cases were sort of getting the short end of the stick. And so I really felt a misalignment between what I wanted to do, help people, and what I was actually doing. And so there was a moment that came where I went out to play pickleball with one of my friends, and he could just see the ping ponging back and forth going on in my mind. And he's like, dude, I can tell that your mind is not on this game. Like, let's go grab dinner. So we went and grabbed dinner, spoke for a bit, and then I left on my bike to go bike back home. And as I'm getting back home, uh, I get a ping, and the ping says, your night's not done. You need to stay out. So instead of turning into my parking garage as I passed it, I turned right and I headed for the St. Pete Pier. And as I got to the pier, it's a cold, dark night in February. There's nobody on the pier, which is, a small miracle that never happens. But I biked and biked and biked and got to the end of the pier. And as I got to the end of the pier, I dismounted from my bike and I put my head against the railing at the pier's end and I just started crying and bawling, tears just pooling down on the pavement below. And all of that frustration of the misalignment that I felt was just coming out of me. After I settled, I walked my bike back up and I laid down on a grassy spot at the end of the pier and I looked up at the stars. And as I was looking up at the stars, I made that connection with God again. And I was told, dude, I've sent you intuition your whole life and you've chosen not to listen. You know what is right. Just follow the path that you want for yourself and everything will be okay. And so I quit my job 2 days later. I got my personal training certification. I started classes to become a psychedelic integration coach. And from that, Get Psyched Fitness was born. And, it was moment after moment after moment of following the intuition that I was given and it leading me in the right direction. And so, through the experiences that I had through the coaching program that I went through, I was able to develop, my dual business, personal training and then also coaching people through psychedelic experiences of their own and through following clinical trials that they're holding for psilocybin and following the protocols laid out through the program. Was able to develop a 6-week course to help people find the foundations of what they're trying to achieve through their psychedelic journey, introduce the psychedelic journey, and then help them integrate those experiences in their life and make those positive changes take hold for the long run.
All right, and how do they schedule? Like, if someone is this something that you can teach satellite wise,
Um,
or
I
you're
ha
developing that?
Yeah, I have before. Uh, it's really best in person. You
Okay,
know, uh, Being with people, feeling the emotion, having that one-on-one conversation is really intensely valuable. That being said, uh, I am open to accepting new virtual clients, uh, but I prefer to be in person.
okay. So now let me ask you this because this is a little twist here. Will there ever be a time that you're gonna be able to take this on the road? Like, say, I'm a football guy. Like, you're gonna
Hmm.
travel the whole ACC or something because you're from up north, so you might go from Boston down to Florida. Well, hell, we got Texas in the ACC now, so I mean, you might start making a trip like that in the near future after you get the course out and everything going. Does that sound like a future plan?
Yeah, most definitely. My wife and I have talked about, kind of doing a tour where, we talk about the struggles that we've gone through in life and help to bring people these type of experiences to show them that, whether you grew up homeless like my wife did, or you went through the type of narcissistic, self-destructive behaviors like I did, that you have the opportunity to change your life and take hold of yourself from wherever you are and create the life that you want to create.
Okay. Now, one arc that she didn't tell us about, and I said arc here, is you slowed down in the world. You did something I did last October. I got married myself. But
Congratulations, brother.
but congratulations to you because I seen the ring on your hand. I was going to ask about it. I don't have mine on right now. Hopefully she doesn't see me. But here's my thing. How did marriage come about for this man that was, you're a buff, you know, James Bond type guy running around the world of the United States? When did you slow down?
Well, so that intuition that I was telling you about, that voice, man, it really came to me in the most incredible way back about 11 months ago. Uh, it was September 6th. I went up to Ocala, about a 2-hour drive from me.
Yep.
I stayed over and woke up on the 7th to do a competition called DECA Fit, which is uh, a, a high intensity interval training competition. I got up that morning at 5 a.m. I went out, I competed at 7. I got in my car. I was driving home. I thought I made the world championships for it. Ended up missing the cut, but story for a different day. But I texted a group chat of my friends, and these are those friends that I was talking about that weren't really aligned with what I was doing, didn't really understand me. And I texted that group chat, and as I sent the text, I got a message, dude, they're not even going to respond. Reach out to new friends that you met in St. Pete. And so, I had made incredible connections through an entrepreneurial group that I have here in town. And I made a new group chat with those guys. And, one of the guys, I was kind of going back and forth on whether to include or not. And as I'm going back and forth, the message is saying, include him. You're going to be grateful that you did. So I said, okay, I included him. Three of the guys of the 8-person group chat ended up meeting me for lunch. And that one that I was going back and forth on says, well, I can't meet for lunch, but I'm going to this party later if anyone wants to go. And, up until this point, I hadn't taken a Saturday night off in like 6 months. I'm like, okay, I'll give myself one night. But I'll get to the party at like 6 o'clock. I need to nap. I'm exhausted from this competition and not sleeping and the drive and yada, yada, yada. So I'm going to go home and nap. And as I lay down the nap, I just keep getting a message. You're not allowed to nap. Get up and go to the party. Get up and go to the party. And like 30 minutes later, I get up, I look at my phone. It's like 2:50. I'm like, okay, I can still nap for 2 hours and get to this party at the time I said I was going to get there. I'm going to nap. So I lay back down the nap again. And as soon as I lay back down, I get, you're not listening. Get up and go to the party. Get up and go to the party now. You're not fucking listening. And I sat up in bed like, what the fuck is going on? But I got up, I grabbed my phone, I text my friends, guys, I'll be there at 4:30. I got a cold shower, I got myself over to the party, and 2 minutes after I walked in, I got a tap on the shoulder. Hey, I'm performing for the party. Can you help me bring in equipment for my car? And it was this beautiful creature, Thansha, who is now my lovely wife. And we've been inseparable ever since then. And, if I hadn't listened to that intuition at that moment, she would have already been performing if I gotten there at 6 o'clock, and we wouldn't have had the ability to make the connection that we had. But her house got flooded in Hurricane Helene that hit Tampa 3 weeks later, and we've been living together ever since and got married a month ago yesterday.
Congratulations. I love a story. Not the happy ending. That's cool because you do that. But the connection that was made because your mind wouldn't let you rest. It told you had to keep going forward. And
Mm-hmm.
because you didn't make that cut, you did make the cut because you got the wife.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that one. Now, the last thing I need you to do for us on this show is I need you to leave us with a mission statement. In the mission statement, please let the audience align with your dreams, your ambitions, and the truth. The truth that you told us today. Take it away, please, John.
Here's your mission. Find what excites you and go for it completely. You're stronger than you think you are. You're stronger than anybody else thinks you are. Go out there, find what excites you, and fucking do it.
And on that note, I am JR, and he is John Borden, and we are out of here.
Please follow WV Uncommonplace on Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, TikTok, where we have some great content, Facebook, LinkedIn. Hit up the merch store at oncommonplace.square.site. Join the email list from the website, and rate, subscribe, and give feedback from your favorite podcatcher. And lastly, thanks for listening, and tune into the next episode.